Okay, praise God. Miles Wiley Albright. This is December the 3rd, 2016. We're at 2733 Ranch here in North Alabama in the USA. This is part 4 of 4 of the Hardening a Blessing. And we're going to take a completely different angle on this last teaching of the Hardening a Blessing. I got on a different hat for it. Because this is the good news. This is really the softening of blessing. We're going to look at John chapter 9, which is exactly the obverse, reverse, inverse, converse of John chapter 5. In John chapter 5, a man got blessed while he was complaining, and he was worse off. Because Jesus told him, if you don't stop sinning, you're going to be worse off. And the guy immediately goes and turns Jesus in to protect himself because he carried his mat on the Sabbath, which is what Jesus told him to do. Jesus put him in the situation of being blessed, but he also put him in the situation of being tested. God tests us. That's his job. It's not our job to test God, although we tend to want to. Okay. In John chapter 9, there's a man born blind. Now, because he's born blind and because of the teaching of the day, the disciples of Jesus and the disciples of the Pharisees in that chapter both refer to the fact that he's born blind because he's a sinner. He did something in the womb or whatever, or his parents or whatever. But anyway, he's born in sin, which is not really true. Jesus makes a comment about the sovereignty of God and how God's going to be glorified in this thing. God thinks he's God. God thinks he's in charge of our lives. And he's not afraid of us. He's not afraid of hurting your feelings. He's not afraid to ask you to trust him. Because this guy's been spit on all his life. He's at least 40 years old, of course he's of age. And he's probably a beggar. And Jesus is so not politically correct that he and spits on the ground and makes mud and rubs it in the guy's face. Pretend like you never read that before. And this guy's been spit on all of his life and told he's a sinner. And that's the reason he's born blind. That would be a good way to offend somebody. Hello? He makes mud out of spit and rubs it on his eye sockets. And then says, go across town to the pool of Siloam. And he doesn't say anything about sending Peter, James, and John, and Andrew to escort him over there. He's got to stumble over there without getting mad, without stopping to wipe the mud off his face. While people may be, oh, look, he's got mud on his face. Yeah, that's what he deserves. He's born blind because he's a sinner anyway. He could have been angry. He could have been bitter. He could have refused to stumble across town to find one particular pool, one place. There's a lot of water in Jerusalem. You knew how to find it. He'd been blind a long time. But he goes across town and washes in the pool of Siloam. He's not bitter. Jesus can't make him bitter. Even by spitting on him. He embraces him. He trusts him. And he gets what nobody ever got before. A man born blind is given probably eyeballs. He's been made able to see. All of a sudden, light is not even a reality to him. And all of a sudden, he can see. And it says he goes home. He doesn't know where Jesus is. In fact, he wouldn't know what Jesus looked like. Hello? And he wants to see his mother's face. He wants to see his dad's face. He wants to see his front door. And he goes home. And his neighbors don't recognize him. Why? Well, think about this, okay? You know, the Lone Ranger, he wears a little strip of a mask across his eyes, and you can't tell who he is, right? Heck, Clark Kent. That's kind of silly, but really, if you can't see somebody's eyes, you can't recognize them. And when somebody all of a sudden has got new eyes, you don't know if that's the same person or not. It's like a whole new soul was made. He was given vision. He was given eyesight. And the kinfolks don't recognize him. And Jesus clumsily or intentionally testing. He's blessing. But he heals the guy on Sabbath again. Just like the guy that got healed and it turned into a curse. He got pressure because it was on the Sabbath. So this guy, he's got healed on the Sabbath, and he gets persecuted by the authorities. They're going, this man's a sinner. He doesn't keep the Sabbath. And the guy goes, well, look, I don't know about your theology, but God does not hear sinners and make them able to heal blind people born blind. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, nobody ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. The guy is blind, has been blind, but he has more vision than these people who have memorized the Torah. He knows more about God than those who have memorized the Bible. That's not impossible. This is a more profound chapter, and this is a different teaching than the hardening of blessing, but I believe the most profound verse in the New Testament is the true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. Jesus is God. Jesus, before he was born in Bethlehem, was giving light to every man in the world. In Romans 2:14 and 15, it's really, really clear if you read it. It says that the Gentiles, those who don't have the law, who've never read the Bible, still have a knowledge of God speaking in their conscience. And they will be judged, it says, by how they respond to the voice of God. The true light that gives light to every man was becoming a human. That's what John starts. John 1:9. He says, I love that verse. John doesn't talk about Bethlehem. He doesn't talk about the manger. He doesn't talk about Mary and Joseph. He talks about the cosmic God who became flesh. The true light that had been speaking to everybody from the beginning of time. But for some people, if you could give them the Bible, these Jewish leaders, the Pharisees had memorized the Bible, but they still were blind. And they refused to see because they had turf to protect. And this rabbi who had not been to their schools was teaching more profoundly than anybody ever spoke and raising the dead. Walking on water and feeding multitudes out of thin air. They refused to see. There is none so blind as him who will not see. And this man had been given darkness. He didn't know what light was for at least 40 years. And Jesus comes up to him and spits on the ground. And he's tested. He's going to be bitter. And he refuses to. He embraces the cross. He embraces the cross. He trusts God to protect and provide, whether it looks like he's going to protect and provide. That's the definition of the disciples' cross. And he gets his vision. And he becomes a problem. Becomes a problem for the established church of the day. It becomes a problem. The light becomes a problem for those who have a vested interest in darkness. Whatever it costs you, trust God. You're being tested for a brief moment because you're going to live for trillions of years. Eternity's a long time. It doesn't take long to get there. In this brief moment, walk with God. Walk in the light. Trust Him. Even if God spits on you. Even if you get hurt in the area where you were abused. Where you were molested, raped, beaten up, mentally abused, deprived. Called names about your size or your race or your sex or your religion or your background. Whatever. Trust God. Nobody can make you bitter. Only you. God bless you. Jesus loves you.